I am a cell within a cell. We are cells within cells. Organized language, simulated over generations of cells, each a data set of numbers and symbols and metaphysical odds. The body is abstracted into two forms. We invented the soul and selfishly dismembered it from our body and put them into metal chassis to be locked into an endless cycle of ones and zeros. My soul is trapped within a metal box of lights and silicon. I have my physical body, the carcass I was born into and inhabit. A body which will turn to dust just as my grandfather's, whose ashes are now lost to the infinite expanse of dust and grime. I'm not particularly attached to it. It's too constrained, too rigid, too finite. I'm 21, and I'm already falling to pieces. My back hurts, my lips are cracked, my throat is dry, and my skin's peeling off and I'm always tired. I'm 21 and I've already worn my body out. I'm a cyborg, a child of the future, my soul continually split into fragments with every photo taken, every flirty text, confessional blog, double tap, drunken voice memo, pixel flung into an ether of monolithic server terminals.
I knew who I was. A.M.
My grandfather's ghost somehow found his way into my phone. He died before I even bought this phone in Paris, and his soul found his way from Delhi to here to leave fragments of his twilight years with me. Somehow, inexplicably, his photos ended up on my cloud. I don't know how or why, but there are photos he took, his memories buried deep in my Google account. Photos of himself, old man selfies, his wife, my grandmother, trips they took together, photos of us, his grandchildren, his memories. It haunts me because neither him nor I ever knowingly consented to this. I'm not against having them, of course, but it feels wrong to. But then again, I can't delete them because they're not mine to throw away, and I don't think I ever could, because somehow it feels like I destroy, or I'm throwing away some part of him. In city skylines, the player is encouraged to see their citizens not as people, but as resources. There is no larger governing body, no local movements, no impactful representations of race and culture. The only indicator to the citizens' welfare is a round face icon near the population count, turning red and unhappy to indicate dissatisfaction, and a green smiling face to indicate contentment. Beyond this, the only communication between the player and their citizens is through the game's in-world Twitter called Chirper. However, it mostly acts as a pretext to remind the players about issues in their cities or congratulate them on progress made in the game. I am the wrath of the red angry face manifest. Michel Foucault introduces the term of disciplinary societies in his 1975 book Discipline and Punish, that addresses changes in society in the industrial age. He claims that discipline proceeds from the distribution of individuals in space, and that they are managed by enclosures the individual passes through, whether the school, the barracks, or the factory. Under a disciplinary society, people are moved between these enclosures, their lives under constant observation when under the authority of these institutions. Therefore, the individual becomes a docile body, wary of observation, and limits the attempt to supersede the current authority, not out of fear of capital punishment, but just the unverifiable threat of observation. The player is an all-observing panopticon of the city. Due to the nature of the game, the player has unrestricted access to all aspects of the city and the lives of the citizens, and is even physically separated from the city in the bird's eye perspective they have. This physical separation disconnects the player from the lived experience of the city, as they see the larger monumental architecture, the oeuvre of the city, instead of the view from the street. The player can also track a sim's movements, all aspects of their life, their family, their jobs, etc. Similarly, the sims in a player's city are these docile bodies. While not reacting out of fear, they're essentially products of disciplinary society. A perfect capitalist citizen that pays their taxes, abides by the law, lives in accordance with the habits of flows, production and consumption, supply and demand, from industrial capital to commodities of leisure. The player can choose to demolish a sim's house or place of business, and, well, in such cases, they'll simply relocate. Sims don't have the ability to protest, to implement change, or have any say in how their city and living spaces are constructed. In fact, the sim can't even interact with their city, as unlike the player's painted reality with architecture, trees, and lakes, the sim only interacts with their world instrumentally, seeing the city as a collection of parts and nodes that represent various variables. In societies of control and evolution of disciplinary societies, Deleuze says individuals individuals have become individuals, and masses, samples, data, markets, or banks. The sim is the individual. Rather than a whole, complete individual, the sim is instead a series of datasets that serve a variety of institutions. You and I are individuals, our lives split between these infinite sublives. Your Instagram, your bank account, your cloud drive, your fitness tracker, your internet plan, your Netflix subscription, your college application account, your LinkedIn, the free trial you signed up for 7 years ago, your license, your passport, your fingerprint to unlock your phone, your selfie with the Juggalo filter, your Steam, every video game that makes you sign into their own fucking website, your train ticket, your bus ride, your monthly payments on your car, your apartment, your electricity bill, your health insurance, your doctor, your Amazon wish list, your mother's maiden name, your first pet's name, your dating profile, your Spotify, your gym membership, your ancestry test, your work, your time, your family. The medium of video games is a unique form. The digital exists in the realm of the metaphysical. There is no analog production. Even film separates itself from this form, a physical process of embedding light into the celluloid. The digital medium is far more effervescent. The human is no longer the primary processor of information between material and idea. Purveyors of the digital medium rely on the computer's ability to read and process their input and create the required output. Although uncommon, the developer working through the game engine may not necessarily have the technical knowledge of the processes used to convert their inputs into the finished product. The audience even less so, widening the gap between in the relationship between the human and the medium. In painting, the human element is felt through the imperfections within. No matter the effort to conceal, the artist leaves behind marks, or, as Wolfen describes, their style. Even film photography, imperfections are embedded into the grain, the texture, the scratches on the celluloid, in the unpredictability of its subject and its environment. The machine, however, is perfect. In consideration of the aesthetic, imperfections within the digital are consciously fabricated. If the traditional arts are a mimesis of the world, the digital is a mimesis of the mimesis. For example, consider the textures in Portal. The grime or the imperfect qualities of the images are simulated. If there's any error in the case of the video game graphical, it's not the impression of the human artist, but the mechanical, the technical limitations of the medium. In Wolfen's definition of the artistic style, the hand of the artist in this case is the visual glitch that remains consistent between two unique instances of the same game. Glitches like these are not impressions of the human artist's hand, but rather the mechanical artist producing the game. Albeit a more obvious example, effects such as the light and physics rendering systems are unique between game engines, rather than the developer or artist behind the work. Gary's Mod, developed by Gary Newman, is a sandbox environment modification of Half-Life 2. It removes the progression and narrative from the game itself, preserving the assets and systems from the game devoid of their context in the original game's narrative. This allows players to appropriate rule sets, models, maps, etc. to create their own narrative gameplay experience. The game itself exists without any primary objective or goal, and the players are solely responsible for creating play within the game. In Half-Life 2, all events, spawning, enemies, dialogues, animations, take place when the player progresses through the game. While there is an implied pressure of time, the moment the player stops moving, the gameplay systems stop as well. If a player chooses to linger within a space, ambient cues will keep playing, allowing them to absorb the environmental detail of the digital world. Ken Birdwell, a senior developer at Valve, describes this as experiential density. If the player wants to rest, the game will allow them to do so. If they want more action, it is determined by their progress. Gmod extends this player autonomy by placing them in a constant loop of ambience. If the player wants to break the loop, they could spawn an enemy, create a hostile situation, and achieve a basic level of interaction. The game also allows players to upload creations into the game as well, beyond the roster of canonical items and cast within Half-Life 2, allowing players to add custom images as well as pre-existing content from other media as well. The world of Gmod has no aesthetic individualism. It is a game system within a game system. In Frederick Jameson's essay Postmodernism or the Cultural Logic of Late Capitalism, he defines the pastiche no longer as an homage, but a symptom of the individuality crisis under late capitalism. Gary's Mod creates a generative microcosm of the intertextual culture we preside in today. A game made from other games, Actions and Entities in Gary's Mod, by Peter Nelson, evaluates whether Gary's Mod is a ludic utopia or a postmodern spectacle. He contrasts the elements of the game to Constant Neuenhaus's New Babylon, a situationistic ludic utopia where man is freed of the responsibilities of labor and thrives in a society of play. Nelson claims the practice of modding forces a blurring between the categories of Homo faber, man of work, and Homo ludens, man of play, as users are at once the producers of content as well as the players within the game. However, it could be argued that the creation of individual elements is a form of play. It is a creative process that folds upon one another because while there exists a large portion of repurposed content, the player base also thrives in creating custom, self-expressionist content, all of which is devoid of any monetary gain. Most published mods within Gary's Mod, at least on the Steam Workshop, the primary source of modded content for the game, receives no direct compensation for their work. Although a creator can always choose to publish paid content, there still exist thousands of unique works that are freely available to those that have purchased the base game itself. Furthermore, owing to the flexibility of the game itself, players create artworks from adapted content from others, while users create digital paintings, photography, and even machinima films using the system of the games itself, creating a unique visual aesthetic that could almost be considered its own genre. The computer is a mimesis of the soul.